We are live. We are live. Oh, hey. Hello, everyone. Hope you're well. Let's see who we got on today. Oh, well, we've got John Shea. Hello. We've got Juno. 191. Why do I have to work? Unfortunately, it's something we all have to do. I had to do about 6 hours of teaching today. And so, despite my cough having gone quite considerably most of the weekend, it has come back with a vengeance a bit today. So, if I do start coughing, don't worry. As I said, not dying. It's not COVID. It's nothing cool. It's literally hot air, hot dust, hot air heating system. Normal human being. Not Superman, unfortunately. Stafford Thompson. Dr. Clark, afternoon. Hope you're having a good day. I spent the morning Well, you've written raking English muff. I'm fairly sure you don't mean what the Carry On world would world and all those movies would mean in that scenario. So I'm sure it's something decent and above board. Not something that should best be left between you and your lady friend. But hope you're having a good day, Stafford. Oh. The American, Canadian, and British English. The variations are so fun. This is probably going to push the PG rating of this video up a bit higher. Hello, Calvin Gasberg. Hello, Greg Starsky. Albert Zatsky. Hello. Shoot Me. Hello. Donrick Arma. Hello. Jim Heaton. Hello. Shane F. Hello. I don't think I've seen you before, so hello. Zachary Gherkin. Hello. Alzaski. Hello. Jeff Beeler. Hello. Billy Spee. Hello. I'm preparing for the paddlers. Again, that's Thursday, and I'm presuming you're meaning paddle steamers. I don't know. Decipher did add a wing there. Possibly. Hello, DGV40. Ian Carlin, afternoon, evening. YouTube is shaking. In the States tape. How about I can stay connected? I do too. Anyway, first things first. I'm sure you've all seen the lovely episode part 5 of the Town Class Cruisers. It was rather fun. As I said, my version does actually have sound on this computer. But apparently, all you get when it's being posted for YouTube, and I know because I tried this again yesterday when I got home, it works on my computer. It does. When you add it to YouTube, it doesn't work. So it's a life's mystery. 1 in 7 didn't work. I don't know. Also, it was number 5. But it did mean I got to answer some of your questions on the Southampton class from across the long patrol, and it meant I got to add a little bit more of extra stuff in today because I did a bumper hour-long part 5, which was about 28 minutes longer than the original one had been, which was 39 minutes, and this was 1 hour and 7 minutes. So, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the new part 5. And yes, this is many people's worst nightmare. Me. In stereo. Ian Carr, hello. Nautical Wolf, hello. Hi, Bart Foster, hello. Lionheart X-Ray, hello. Alex Jacobs, hello. Martin Dock, hello. Peter Dawson, hello. Cosres, hello. Just wandered into the racking comment. Thank you, Brad Bitter. Peter Dawson, hello. Cosres, hello. Cadron, hello. Looks like YouTube each sound. Possibly. Gordon Collins, hello. So, that was Cadron, all hail to Catalina. I'm a bit worried about that. Hello, Belnora. Now, I did say I'd start this at 6:30. So that's why I'm not starting yet. This is why I'm sort of discussing this stuff, because this is down to starting at 6:30, and literally it was down at 6:30 to give me time to rest my voice between teaching and between this, so I would not be coughing the whole time, hopefully. Dunraganhammer, did you mention Mountbatten forcing a YouTube to censor you? Not quite. Not quite. But I think he could have been, because I did manage to add in again, I made sure to add in again into this version, that Newcastle had the dubious fate of at one point ending up as his flagship. Poor ship. Poor ship. Poor HMS Newcastle. Blue Shabuda, hello. Jeff Beeler, thank you. 1, Gallipoli, no troops. 2, no surprise. 3, no drive. I will offer ideas on all those ones, but basically the main thing is what happens if Gallipoli had succeeded. And the real answer to that is, well, what happens if Gallipoli succeeds at different points? Because there are multiple points where Gallipoli could, in theory, have succeeded. There is an interesting discussion going on as whether it's Blackburn, or Catalina, which you should be praying to in the comments. I'm slightly worried that I've now created a second church somehow. Nope. Towns are not putting in a late appearance at Gallipoli. I just thought it's interesting to have part 5 mentioned above. And I'm going to get rid of it before it overloads the supply of the internet. So far, new IKB 4472, you have just missed me talking about part 5 of 7 of the Town Class series. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Right then, so Martin Doherty. What if Gallipoli had succeeded? It's an interesting question, actually, from the start of it. Because if Gallipoli succeeds, that changes World War I dramatically. The big problem for Russia being in the war is, despite this idea that Germany and Austria-Hungary are surrounded, it's that one side of them is Russia, which has no infrastructure other than being able to move goods by the sea. It has no... It's not really sustainable in its form. It's not even really sustainable now. Basically, the whole thing is just a very big issue. Vision, hello. Just got back from Christmas shopping. Good. Hope we found something. Hope we found lots of fun things. I'm still trying to find the perfect gift for my girlfriend. It's complicated. Lots of ideas for presents for her, but it needs to be a Christmas present. It's so level as a birthday present. It needs to be special, not just something I normally get her as a present. Something special. Jeff Beeler, stop adding in even more trouble. The short Admiralty Type 184. Good lord. Oh. Hello, Gordon Collins. Hello, Effin. Hello, everyone. Oh, good lord. Khan, hi, Doctor. Thanks for Sunday's videos. Really made me happy after losing a tooth. Well, I'm sorry you had to lose a tooth, but I'm glad the videos made you happy. So, January to April 1915. Real world timeline. You have, in the Ottoman Gallipoli time, you have Ottomans occupying Umar and Tabriz on the 4th to 11th of January. The 2nd of January, the Russian offensive in the Carpathians begins. It'll continue until 12th of April. 28th of January to 3rd of February, Ottomans failed to capture the Suez Canal. They failed mightily. They fail bigly. They fail wiggly, wiggly, wiggly. Most importantly, they fail. On the 18th of March, British and French forces unsuccessfully tried to force the Dardanelles. 12th to 14th of April, there's the Battle of Shariba. 19th of April to 17th of May, Ottomans besieged the Armenian city of Van. 24th of April, deportation of the Armenian intellectuals to Ankara. First act of the Armenian genocide. Also has the fun of causing most of the Armenian troops and a large number of the other troops in Ottoman forces to start considering whether or not their masters are people they really want to be serving. It's painful when you rely on armies which are connections of multi-ethnic groups. If you start picking off one ethnic group, the other ethnic groups, the other minor ethnic groups start to look at you and go, hang on, first you're going for them, when are you going to come for us? So, on 30th of January, the Russian troops take the breeze. And the 7th to 22nd of February, Second Battle of Masurian Lakes. This is when the Russian 10th Army is defeated. 5th of March, Great Britain and France promise Russia Constantinople. There is a reason they do that. Those two events may be linked. We'll be discussing this further. 7th of March, Ottomans retreat to Kotor, pushed by a Russian counteroffensive. 22nd of March, the siege of Prensils ends with the Russians capturing the fortress. That's off the Austro-Hungarians. And 15th of April, the Battle of Dilmun is won by Russian forces. Basically, they're having fun. A lot of fun. Bolivar, greetings. I'm glad you've been looking forward to us. Hello, Yickers. Hello. Basically, my response, because you can't do emoticons when talking, so when people wave or put emoticons, I usually do a wave back. Or if it's your first time I've seen you, I had a wave. So just, that was one of the other questions which appeared. Why do some people get a wave and some people don't? That's literally it. If you put an emoticon in, I try and add something else in. Just seems nice to me. Shanef, I bought my girlfriend a rotavator last Christmas. Is she still your girlfriend this Christmas? I was always told that white goods, as in electrical appliances or I don't know, pans, kitchenware, fridges, all those things, never give for birthdays or Christmas. In fact, don't give them as presents at all. Buy them. They're for the house. And know how to use them as well. Alex Jacobs, gold, precious stones, and jewelry are excellent Christmas gifts. But finding one I like. And the trouble was, I found a very good thing like that last year. It's finding a good one, finding something I like this year. William Cox, what happened to the U-boat that had so much fun amongst the battleships? Mostly, it was mines. Dunragama, at what point does the censor show up at his door with some rather interesting questions? Censors? Yes, to ask about the religions. That will be a very long question. JP, all hail a different aircraft every time. Not sure which airplane to plug firstly. Probably the Grom F4F flying off the USS Wolverine. Montgomery. Whoa. GB and France promised Constantinople to Russia. Massive and quite turnabout from the Crimean War. Yeah, basically it reflects how annoying the Ottoman Empire has been. What their relative opinion is on the value of Constantinople. And more importantly, what their relative opinion on keeping the Russians involved in World War I is. You have to give them a very big carrot for taking all that stick. Shomak, I am ghosting. The mod is always watching, I'm glad. Hello, Earthborn Gnome. Inkar, what's the capital of Ottoman Empire, Constantinople at this time? It was Istanbul. But, yeah, to the Russians, it was Constantinople. There was another reason why Britain and France could offer it, because they always had some options. It was a petrol motivator. Shane, I'm not sure that makes it any better. Sam Thompson, I cannot imagine how the Allies could have seized the Bosphorus before tanks and effective aircraft. Well, the thing is, if you don't have those things in existence at the time on either side, you can do it. It is not going to be as fast, but it's still able to be done. If the Romans managed to achieve it with spears, swords, some good shield work, some fairly fairly decent cavalry, I'm fairly sure later generations could achieve it with their equipment. It wouldn't be easy, it'd be doable. Hello, Aviator Enterprise. Garmin, I never understand how my father is still married to my mother. Every year he buys her a white good as a gift. Yeesh. Jeff, how important was Odessa, Russia's main commercial port before the war? Very important. Basically, when you can move the supplies through Odessa into Russia, you have a lot of supplies going through. You have a lot of safety. You have to remember, in Russia at this time, quite a lot of goods are still moved on the rivers. Quite a lot of goods are still moved today on the rivers. And where the railway lines are and where various things. There are very few railway lines going the whole way across at this point. In fact, I don't think there's really any I would judge as going the whole way across properly. So, you need a lot. And I say this with no small amount of emphasis. You need a lot of supplies going through, and Odessa is critical for those supplies going through. And it's a nice free port. Shane F., I have only one question about Gallipoli, and that's why, for God's sakes, why? Well, it's simple, really. And let's just quickly pop into this one. Before I get into this in proper, let's talk about this. Why Gallipoli? Because Russia only has a few ports which are ice-free the whole year round. Most of those are on the Black Sea. And they're the really big ports. And if you are trying to keep Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria in the war against the Austro-Hungarians, if you're trying to really encircle, and you're also trying to deal with the Ottoman Empire, which keeps attacking you in various points, and keep the Russians in the war against the Ottoman Empire, because remember, the Russians aren't just fighting the Germans and Austro-Hungarians, they are also fighting the Ottomans. You need to be able to supply them. You need to be able to give Russia supplies. There are only so many places you can go. It's one of those classic situations. You have to attack there because that's the only point you can attack. People often look at the various attacks on castles and go, so, why were you attacking the bridge which leads across the river into the fortress? Because there is no way in the other side. It's a steep cliff. I can't get troops up. I get troops up the cliff, they find a wall which is another 50 feet high on top of the wall, on the top of the cliff face, which is 200 feet high. I can bombard there, but they are fixed stone walls, and look at it, I've got trebuchets. The technology is going to not allow me to bash away for that long, so I'm going to have to go across the bridge. I'm going to have to find a way to fight my way across that bridge. It's the only option. I'm going to lose a lot of troops doing it. It's the same with Gallipoli. Think of Gallipoli as that besieged bridge. To get to the castle, you have to fight across it. You have no choice. Question is how you do it. And the question is when you do it. So, this is the timeline again. And if we go through, you see the points I've picked up for discussion. First is the 19th of February. Believe it or not, if things happen on the 19th of February, then the world gets very different. For starters, even though the Second Battle of Masurian Lakes and the Russians end up losing that one, the fact is, if the Russians have lost a 10th army, that's annoying. But if during that time the British and French have managed to force the Dardanelles, then, well, supplies are coming. Let's get those men armed, let's get them fed, let's get them trained, let's probably send in, well, we'll probably let the Russians send some of their less capable troops to secure Constantinople, and we'll use our very capable troops, the British troops, the Anzac troops, and the French troops, to form a force fighting alongside the Russian army against the Austro-Hungarians, probably joining up the Serbs and the Romanians, and diving into the part of Austro-Hungary which is most diverse and probably causing the Germans a minor nightmare. Then there is the 18th of March. Now, the trouble is, if they do it then, which they still could do, but if they did it then, well, they've already promised Russia Constantinople. And it's after Russia's already lost a lot, so they're going to need something big. You're going to be sending more troops than you would send to Gallipoli to do that. And if it's the 25th of April, well, Russia's actually still suffer the losses, but they've now got some wins in the back, which is going to make them feel more confident. All are rather interesting options. And I want to think about the Dardanelles here. I always consider it sort of close to trying to invade, I don't know, Cornwall. It looks out there and exposed, but as anyone who's ever actually been to Cornwall know, it's not exactly flat. In fact, it's beautiful, but it's got valleys which come out of nowhere. It's got steep points, rocky points, non-stop. Basically, I would say if I was going to defend anywhere in the UK from to attack, I'd love to defend either Cornwall or really the north part of the Highlands, because, yeah, infrastructure is going to be interesting on both sides, but it's going to work for me as a defender far more than you as an attacker. William Cox, why, sir? Sir Winston Churchill, not quite. Senator Thompson, I meant that the defense, since at least Port Arthur and Russo-Japanese War, had so much advantage. How could allies win before technological pendulums win defense? I would say that the reason the Japanese win the Russo-Japanese war against Port Arthur is logistics. Again, the same problem which which Russia and the Soviet Union and then nowadays Russia is still trying to deal with. The infrastructure within Russia it's so immense. It's very difficult to run decent infrastructure. We, of course, talk now that the Trans-Siberian line is double-tracked and electrified for most of its part. But honestly, if you wanted to fight a war in Siberia, you need a lot more than a double-track line to bring stuff down. Ian Carr, was anything coordinated with the Russians when actions against Gallipoli took place? Yes, the Russians were doing a lot in the Caucasus. Jermek, Russian Black Sea Fleet performed, but I'm not sure if at this certain time. Lots of mining operations on approaching Istanbul to block sailing along shore of coal transports, for example. Yes, and they did other things. They tried to be as active as they could be. Alzeski, the question is, would those supplies really turn the tide for Russia? Don't think lack of supplies is the only reason for Russian defeat in World War II. I'm presuming you mean World War One, and no, it's not the only thing, but I think if you have food and ammunition coming through, along with allies, then I think a lot of the problems which caused an explosion in 1917 might well not happen. Especially if those food and supplies are involved with victory. If you get Constantinople, that's going to feed a lot of religious fervor within Russia, allow the Tsar to make a lot of claims about their protection of Orthodox Christianity. And yes, those problems will still exist, but I have a feeling they won't come to a head till after the war. What will happen is I think the problems that happened would still happen, but I have a feeling they'd have come to a head in 1920s, not in 1917. So I'm not saying they go away permanently, they go away forever. I'm saying that if you have the war go in a more positive turn, if you've got food in people's bellies, if you've got supplies and infrastructure working, and you've got all those things going on, then I'd say the moderate politicians and a lot of other things get involved that way. I also think you'd have the very interesting and very real possibility that Tsar Nicholas would have moved his family down to Constantinople, where they would have been surrounded by loyal soldiers because of various religious ceremonies which would need to be done to reconcentrate things like the Hagia Sophia as a Orthodox Christian space. So, yeah, it would have been massive. Vision. In the simplicity and efficiency of the Russian railway system, in the name of simplicity and efficiency, Russian railway system ran all trains at an average speed of 15 miles an hour per hour. Trans-Siberian Railway didn't have the capacity of today, but being double-tracked and electrified. Talked about that one. John South, with the extra supply route to Russia, they might have prevented the collapse of the Russian Empire. At least the peasants wouldn't be starving lots. Yes, and it's also when you realize that if you have the supplies coming in and you have other power bases built up outside of St. Petersburg and Moscow and these sort of things, then things can be different. Ben Laurent, as an avid Munro bagger, I can attest to the roughness of terrain west of Inverness. Hello, Vice Admiral Nelson. Could the Ottomans have defended Constantinople? Would have been the biggest urbanized battlefield in the war? I don't think it would have been a biggest urban battlefield. I don't think they would have defended it. I think if the Allies had forced Gallipoli, I have a feeling the Constantinople itself would quite well have probably been abandoned by the Ottoman court. What's interesting to note is, again, the timings. As I said, I've gone for different times because if you haven't promised Constantinople to Russia, so this one succeeds, then there are different options for what you can do in Constantinople and can do in Russia and do in Turkey. Bernard, the collapse of the railways due to overuse by the end of 1916 could well have been averted or directly alleviated. Yes, massively, because you'd have had ships being able to go the right way around. Vision. Soviet Union did a big upgrade of railway system into 1980s. China followed their example after World War II. Continue investment in both mixed use and high-speed lines. In World War II, the US exports a lot of locomotives of Russia as part of Lend-Lease. My grandfather worked building them at Alavka in Schenectady. Oh. Wasn't wheat Russia's primary export for World War I? Wasn't it the world's largest grain exporter, almost all through the Black Sea? Yes, and yes. Shomak, if you're winning in the name of a perceived noble cause, then sacrifices become much easier to stomach. Yes, you are the defender of Orthodox Christianity. That is what they would be marketing themselves as if they've got Constantinople back. Alzowski, actually, no. I'm going to defend Russian generals. They have some very good ones. They also have a lot of very bad ones, but they have some very, very good ones. And I'm going to defend at least two of them specifically, because they are the ones who cause a lot of problems to the Allies if they win the Gallipoli, mainly because they are so good. Professor Animal Nelson, regarding the move of the Imperial family, had even one reliable guard regiment been in Petrograd, the revolutionaries would have been wiped out, at least according to later exiled Russian officials. Yes, but the fact they don't manage to maintain one reliable guards regiment is quite worrying. Bernard, there was a much larger Greek population there than nowadays. That would likely be a fifth column, particularly if you were liberating for Greece, which is an option in this first one. Would loss of Gallipoli and Constantinople have knocked the Ottomans out of the war and allowed Russia to redeploy their troops from this front? Potentially. Surely you would have to secure both sides of the Bosphorus. Potentially. But if you get control of one side and you've got big ships going through, the other side really has a lot of problems. Right now. So, firstly, could have it succeeded? Well, if two particular individuals had managed to get on the same page and supply both the ships and the troops at the same time, then we might be talking about a very different scenario. Because, let's be honest, the 19th of February is the earliest part it could happen. Okay, it's the earliest time you can get ships there. It's the earliest time you could get troops there if you'd actually pushed your button and got the troops engaged. So let's say you get the troops there and the men there at the same time. The ships do a bombard. Let's say they go with a variation on Roger Key's plan. You have some merchant ships which have minimal crews whose job is to charge through the straits. They are empty, they are filled with buoyant goods, and they just keep going. So they take out mines. They're minesweeping done the old-fashioned way. I.e., what gets sunk, gets sunk. Behind those, you have a couple lines of pre-dreadnought battleships. Again, they'll be blasting away, but if you lose one or two, that's life. Behind them, you have HMS Queen Elizabeth. If Goban or anything turns up, hello, I've got 15-inch guns. I'm here to say hello to you. Hello, come to me, Goban. Come, I want to be your friend. I need to embrace you in 15-inch fire. It'll be nice. You're running. I'm coming after you. A lot of fun for HMS Queen Elizabeth. So, the question is, though, the troops, let's say, rapidly landing, various points as they push along, with fire from the ships blocking them. If it takes place early morning, so the troops are actually landing, sort of are actually getting ashore just in the cover of darkness, and then by the time it's early morning, lights come out so that they're all lit up. It's dawn. Ships going through, firing away. They can see their targets. The troops can make their way up to the target, to the forts easily while they're undercover, and they're shocked. They're at a point. You probably have them run out of their ammunition. They probably see troops coming ashore, think there's millions, and they get overwhelmed. Because, you know why I say all this? Because it almost happens. When they're doing it later on, another time, when they put a few parties of Marines and sailors ashore, that's what they think. By the time we're talking later, the Ottoman forces are completely revolved and they are far better. But honestly, the best Ottoman troops, if we look at the timeline, have been down fighting the British to try and get to the Suez Canal. So I'm going to point this out here. The ones at Gallipoli, which this one wants to hit, and that one doesn't really want to get involved in at all, are not even the C team, as in the British had at Singapore. They're the D or E team, because the Ottomans are fighting the Russians up in the north. They are doing stuff to the Armenians in the east, and they are dealing with the British down in the south and in Iran and Iraq area, or Persian area at that time. So honestly, they're fighting on several fronts. The fact that this could have turned out to be a weak front which relied on its infrastructure and impression, rather than reality, could have been quite easily there. All it required was the British and French to turn up with enough force quickly enough. I'd say. And the Russians would have been able to export again, yes. Gallipoli succeeds. Ottomans knocked out the war. More pressure put on Austro-Hungarian Empire, Russian, British Empire, possibly French troops pressing from east, leading possible collapse there. Then Germany. This is possibly what we're going on to. So, the thing is, though, with this early victory, the question becomes who gets Constantinople. Now, I think with the large Greek population, the British would probably make Constantinople a Russian protectorate under the administration of the Greek government. So they'd make it a joint thing. Why would they do it as that? because that would then satisfy the two Orthodox Christian nations, two largest ones, and it would also mean, especially during with a war going on, it would tie the Greeks to the Allied cause, which would make supply of the personnel in fighting in Serbia, Montenegro, Albania that much easier if you've got Greece to help supply. Plus, it takes pressure off Russia from actually maintaining a large number of forces there till possibly after the war is over, because they need to be fighting elsewhere. The other thing that comes out is if you have this victory and the Ottoman court is forced to withdraw, then you might well have the young Turks might well decide that the way to get rid of the Ottoman rulers is to actually work in concert with the Allies. So you end up with a Turkey being formed, which is mostly the Asia Minor area on that map. So the stuff the other side of the Dardanelles. That's an idea. What does that all mean, though, for the war? With supplies able to move from sea and come in on both sides, you have less pressure on the railways to move the supplies across country. So the railways keep going in 1916. But you also have the ability to build up depots on both north and south of Russia to supply their forces, which means you can put a lot more effort into the successful campaigns going on against the Austro-Hungarians. You would also probably have allies get involved. What does this mean for Austro-Hungary? Well, if they are fighting on every single border, barring that with Germany, and they are fighting hard, they're in trouble. It also means likelihood is that certain officers, which we'll be talking about later, but which I'm going to mention quickly now, i.e. Generals Nikolai Nikolaevich Barotov and General Nikolai Nikolaevich Yunenich, will get redeployed to fight the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians. And let's be honest, you wouldn't want to be the Austro-Hungarians or the Germans fighting them. They really don't understand this concept of you are polite to the enemy? You take prisoners? What? What are you talking about? You give them time to think? It's a supply scenario. If you have all these supplies coming in, it's just not good for Germany and for Austro-Hungary. It accentuates the problems they're already facing. Because Italy, remember, has split. Italy is already fighting on the Allied side, has joined the Entente. With the whole of this against Germany, Austro-Hungary, you have to consider the problems they're going to be facing. But also you then start to think about the Allies. What does the effect of this, the freeing up of all these forces, suddenly mean for the British? Well, a lot of those pre-dreadnoughts will probably come home and be demobilised. Some allowing their crews to be transferred to other ships, perhaps for the convoy war, i.e. manning destroyers, manning escorts for the convoy, fighting the submarine force war. A lot of those dreadnoughts might be sent around the world to be in position to deal with any surface raiders which get out. So there's a lot of things which can help the British forces here. And you probably, if you win quickly, you lose a lot less people. And Anzac myth becomes not so much about triumph in the face of adversity and forged through fire that way, but forged through the fire of victory New Zealand Australians' first major campaign is a glorious success. You know, it would be something cool. Jeff Wheeler, how can a pure naval force capture Istanbul? Because a naval force in 1917, in 1915, is not a pure naval force as you or I would understand. Naval force in 1915, has a large number of sailors who have been trained to use rifles, who have probably fought in various ground wars, who are very good at ground combat around the world. They will be landed. They've got a large number of Marines aboard. It's, plus the other way naval forces capture cities is by just basically shelling the butt out of them until they give in. Right. Regarding guards, they were on the front line. The troops in Petrograd were conscripts without morale and desperate need to go home and avoid the frontline service. Yep. Schönbrunn, did the Tsar regard themselves as successors of the Roman Empire and taking control of Constantinople, the reunification of the Roman Empire? Byzantine Empire. Vision. It's unfortunate that Winston Churchill didn't live long enough to watch your video on Gallipoli. Love that scene in Darkest Hour between Churchill and Halifax. Would have been fun. Jeff Miller, the Turks do have a local leader, Kemal Ataturk. He isn't yet as the leader you would understand. He's forged in many ways, again, by his presence and status in forward many ways by his service in Gallipoli. Jemek, Mustafa, and because Mustafa Kemal has been able to stop Entente force in Gallipoli CD team, he became Ottoman and later Turkish shining star. Yes. Samuel Cox. Churchill was a slow learner. He tried pushing into Europe from the Mediterranean in both wars. He called it soft underbelly, utterly ignoring the Balkans and Alps. Honestly, if you consider Italy and the way they swapped over to the Allies, yes, that was a soft underbelly, and in this case, he wasn't talking about being the soft underbelly. It was a necessary one. It's the only ports you can get to in Russia which are close enough to the front line that you will be able to actually affect the front line, and which are able to be got at in all weather, all seasons. Vice Admiral Nelson, Bulgarians would not have joined in. I guess even more by news outlook. I think the Bulgarians would have joined in because it would have become, again, if the Russians and the Greeks get control of Constantinople and the Hagia Sophia, then it becomes an Orthodox Christian war versus everyone else who might take it from them. And nothing can unite those nations at this point in 1914, 1915, 1916, like Orthodox Christianity could. Jumran, could the schism between Greek and Russian Orthodox Church cause difficulty for Russian given Greek control and even temporarily? I think it could cause an issue, but I don't think it would cause as much of an issue as we might worry about. I think they'd be so happy short term for getting control and for getting involved and being able to reconstitute it, that it would become one of those things which would start becoming an ecumenical discussion and debate, and would be something which would probably be. I had the feeling that the Tsar would come south to Constantinople and want to preside over a grand Christian convention to discuss it and to discern it. And you probably have representatives sent from the Church of England and from France and from Rome to come along and all. You can just imagine it. It'll be one of the grandest occasions the world's ever seen. And it would keep him away from running the war, which would help Russia again immensely. Because he wasn't too bad, but he really wasn't as good as he thought he was. Italy would probably join in on our side a little bit earlier as well. Yeah. Let's see. Sometimes Churchill didn't like landing at Normandy or the French Riviera. Ironically, both went well, Dragon being nearly a cakewalk. And he was worried about those ones. He was actually quite not too bad at the French Riviera. Operation Dragoon, he was quite supportive. But no, although, fun fact, many of the Greeks on the Ottoman-controlled islands still refer themselves as Romans in this period. And there's a whole debate going on us. Right, before we get on to the next one, due to coughing and various things, I'm on the 4th bottle of this today, so, well, it's refilled with tap water, but I'll be back in a second. Right. But pretty much it's the same story. But it's the most interesting because it happens the earliest. Banalore, bet on Zahn dressing up as Constantine the Great. Definitely. Jack, I wouldn't count much on Orthodox Christian unity. It's Balkans after all. I don't think it would last that long. I'm not really counting, but it would probably last. How do I put this? It would be a rallying cry when it happened. It would keep them together long enough to fight the war. The moment war was over, it would then be a whole new war. So basically, it would help the First World War. It would then cause another war. And Maxi, I agree with Gemma. Greek would surely claim Kosovo themselves, and Bulgaria would have lots of territorial claims as well. I am sure they would, but in the middle of war, they probably accept what they were going to get, which is, as I said, they get the administration, but it becomes a Russian protectorate of it. So, it's what we call the Monaco, not Monaco, the Morocco solution. Sure. Also, when the Tsar comes back to running war, he'd probably go and focus almost exclusively on the Balkans, since he can't be a liberator. It would keep him out of the actual war. The benefits just keep coming. Okay, the benefits just keep coming. Inca. Italy won the Axis side in World War I. He was not doing veered much as the naval force in their training. Didn't do anything. Jepila, what would be a successful Gallipoli's effect on Bulgaria? Would Germany pressure them into let them through, attack the British? They'd probably try, but again, if we go back to this map quickly, the thing is, you have a fight going on in Serbia between them and Austro-Hungary, and you have Romania here. Then you have Bulgaria. So if the Germans and the Austro-Hungary, remember, the Germans would have to go through Austro-Hungary, move their forces across there. So that's forces they wouldn't have fighting over here. Forces they wouldn't have fighting in France. Forces they wouldn't have fighting against Russia. They'd have to move through Austro-Hungary, fight their way through Romania, and then get to Bulgaria. Oh, and then they'd still have to fight their way on from there. Mm-hmm. So I don't think the Germans are going to really get through Bulgaria. I think they probably find themselves in problems. Ellen Cox, everyone was afraid of Russia's awakening as an industrial power. Everyone was afraid of them getting actual infrastructure, let alone industry. Probot79, hello. Pretty sure Byzantine Empire didn't refer to itself that way. That was done by others mainly after it ended. There's so many things with them. Schumran, I think to regard two Orthodox churches as so similar they wouldn't fight ignores almost every religious war in history. They would, as I've said, they would probably get into a whole. They would start with, while the war was going on, they wouldn't fight each other in terms of actual physical violence because they'd be concentrated on the first war. Once that war was over, and all the agreements that they'd come at their big Orthodox convention, which Tsar Nicholas had proposed, had turned to mush, then the fighting would begin. But what is the amber liquid? Iron brew. It's the Scottish soft drink. Basically, it's the soft drink equivalent of whiskey. Yes, my first night. This is good, kind of. I'm glad it's good, kind of. There are some which I have to admit are probably better than others because some are topics which I have been teaching and researching and interested in for years, and some like tonight are the things I teach occasionally, but so I don't get into as much. Usually because Gallipoli is sort of considered a land campaign by when they seem to be organizing the teaching at various universities. They tend to prefer to get a military historian rather than a naval historian in to teach it, which I consider wrong because I consider Gallipoli all about the amphibious warfare. Ben Laura, the Second Grand Church Council of Nicaea, only this time without a hyperpower dictating the terms. I'm sure Tsar Nicholas would try to dictate the terms. Anyway, point 2. 18th of March. British and French forces unsuccessfully try to force the Dardanelles. Well, let's go back to this one. What's happened since this point? You've had the Second Battle of Masurian Lakes. This is going to make the Russians a bit more desperate. And Britain and France have now promised Russia Constantinople. So, 18th of March. Mm-hmm. Because I have heard conflicting things about forcing straits. One teacher I had said the Kirks threw a few rusty mines in straits, whilst others said it was a lot of mines. Ideas? Lots and lots of mines. Lots and lots of mines. But actually, yes, they were. Keyes is actually right. So these are the two officers that you have to think about in this scenario, because, yeah, I could talk about the various Allied officers and their role and the various things, but honestly, none of that matters. No one else matters in the end. You've got the Chief of Staff and you've got the Commander. They're the two minds you have to think about, and specifically this one, the Commander. And Michael de Roback is a very nice guy. He is, if I was going to put him in any position, I would say second in command of the Grand Fleet. He's everyone's pal. He's an excellent person to sound off. But he is also the safe pair of hands who will always do everything he can to preserve his fleet. And the classic example is this, because they're down to a couple of hundred shells in the forts. There is one line of mines practically between them and the end. Yes, they would have lost some more ships, but they'd fought so far that if they'd actually made it through, they lose 4 pre-dreadnoughts. Now, this sounds a lot, and it is a lot of ships in terms of personnel and crew and all these things. I get, but you have to then think, how many ships have they actually got in the fleet? So, the Allies sent a Queen Elizabeth, 3 battle cruisers, 28 pre-dreadnoughts, battleships, 23 cruisers, 25 destroyers, 13 submarines, and a seaplane carrier. Most of their casualties take place during the 18th of March. And what's really interesting is that you have Gallois, Bouvet, and Suffren damaged in the French Line B. The British Line B, Irresistible, and Ocean gets on. Basically, the Allies send in a group of 18 ships on this occasion. 3 get sunk: Bouvet, Irresistible, and Ocean. HMS Irresistible was a formidable class pre-dreadnought battleship, and Inflexible, Suffren, and Gallois all get damaged. But if you consider the number of troops they have, a number of ships they have available, if you consider the scenario they have, they're doing quite well. You know, they can afford to. Sounds terrible, but you can afford to lose some to push it a bit forward. And they almost did it. They do land Marines, they do land troops, they do have all sorts of things going on the 18th of March. They do really, really freaking well. And then Roebuck goes, oh, well, we've gone far enough, but it's just too costly to go forward. What we'll do is we'll draw, and then we'll call in for more force, and then we'll come back and force the last bit. Because, of course, the enemy's going to do nothing in that time. The enemy is going to sit there and go, you know what? You've just beaten me up. You've come in, but you've gone away. I've won. So I'm going to sit here and do nothing now. I'm not going to look at how close that came and think, you know what? I need to rebuild my forts. I need to actually deploy some decent soldiers, and I might want to build some roads, just some infrastructure. And the thing, could do with this being whiskey. Simon Thompson, a Scot told me iron brew started with prisoners seeking nutrition by soaking nails in water and then drinking the iron fortified water. I think that's one of many, many myths around it, but actually it's just put together as the Scottish health tonic. It comes at the same time as Coca-Cola, basically. I am starting to worry about the cult of the Blackburn. This is the sort of thing this is the sort of scenario I see where I find myself suddenly being described as the high priest of religion and going on some sort of BBC television program and going, I have no idea how it happened. Boulevard, Keys wanted to bring in destroy minesweepers. Yes, that was the other thing. Keys wanted minesweepers there. It would have been useful, and if they'd had them, they could have pushed through definitely. Jenna, what's with this Blackburn all time? All right thinking. God-fearing men worshipping the one true God. Oh, good lord. That's going to start a war. Incar, if Arya managed to break through to the Sea of Marara, Constantinople would have been in trouble. It would have been taken, pretty much. Spoiler, a few Marine units did much better with the element of surprise than the entire expeditionary force with many more troops. Yeah. Some Royal Marines and sailors did very, very well. Well, Benlar, so someone more aggressive, sturdy, or beaty, perhaps, would have been better. Yeah, would have been. Anyone would have been better. A pure scout plane made by Blackburn Company that's so ugly that only a way you can explain how it can fly is through divine power. Google it at your own peril. Shane F., save yourself, don't. Bolivar, Church's idea as that ships used were dispensable anyway, outdated and due for scrapping, which was basically Jackie Fisher's policy. Anonymous, war is a terrible calculus of killing and dying. Study out of it, and then prevent it if possible, and win if necessary. Pretty much. Peter Dawson, you say Gawa? I think it's in the wrong field. Gulis. Sorry. Gawa, no, Gulis, one of the three Charlemagne class pre-journals. Sorry. My own spelling. When I go back went to the original notes rather than the notes I have for my talking, I found that I'd managed to mangle the spelling. Sorry, Gulis. Gaulois. Ian Carr, between the first and second invasion, Scotland's got a lot of technical advice and assistance from Germans. Yes, plus they moved in some actually good regiments. And more importantly, some good officers to run the regiments already there. And good NCOs to start organising them. A guy called Apturk comes along and goes, I actually need NCOs who people follow. Shape up or ship out. With the shipping out not being the fun option. Shomak, we can withdraw because the enemy will recognize that we won this ground, fair and square. During the next campaign, we will fight on the remaining ground. Student, also, really enjoyed your very long cruises on the town class. I did like them. Consequence, if the Straits of Force, could the Russian Revolution be averted, or was the system too rotten to be conserved? Well, as I was saying earlier, and I will get to this again, I think you still probably have a Russian Revolution, but I think it probably waits until the 1920s. I think they possibly get through World War One. So, what did I went and picked an officer out and said, right, as you have already pointed out, any of the more aggressive officers the RN had at their disposal would have probably pushed on, gone, damn the consequences, we're taking this straight, we're forcing these forts, because again, if you take Constantinople and you have a fleet there, those forts will fall. And if the forts fall and you have the supply route into Russia, then is anyone going to turn around and go, oh, you lost 6 battleships, you lost 6 pre-dreadnoughts, I captured Constantinople, secured the Straits of the Dardanelles, and allowed a all year round access supplies flow to Russia. You lost only 6 ships? Here, have another dozen medals. So, I wanted to look for an officer who would have been about right rank, and interesting enough to be deployed to the Dardanelles, which means he can't be too senior, but he needs to be senior enough that he'd outrank Roebuck. And I have one, if he'd still been alive. Christopher Craddock. Now, the thing was, he was a very, very good and very smart naval officer in many, many ways. And I know he loses the Battle of Cornell, but that was faced against overwhelming odds, and he actually does the sensible thing. Because Spey has him on range of guns. The only thing Craddock can do to try and win the battles is try and close the range as much as he can in order to pepper him with the more guns he has. And if he'd had the various systems with him, the ships with him he should have done, he'd have probably won. But he didn't. But what I'm saying is, let's say he survived. Let's say Craddock survives and he replaces Roebuck. Let's say there's a fog bank comes down and through his good sailing he managed to get Good Hope and maybe part of his command away. And they managed to get to the Falkland Islands and form up with Sturdy for the Battle of the Falkland Islands, and he does well again then. He would then have been an obvious choice to go for Gallipoli. Be a nice out-of-areas command. It wouldn't upset any of the ones under the Grand Fleet going, oh, but this is my sinecure. And it would have been good. It would have been promotion. Decision. If you aren't willing to accept losses, then you can't afford to fight in the first place. But that's easy to say from our chairs rather than as the commander seeing those men in the water. It is. I do agree. It's far easier to say it than to do it. And I can understand him. I can respect him. But the fact is, you then look at how close he gets to winning. And I honestly don't think he's going to lose many more ships. He's got 3 sunk, 3 damaged. That's scary. But that's not also not insurmountable. Danny Phillips, would Britain taking the Dardanelles? No, not taking those as a colony. That would be more, especially at this point, because at this point, remember, it's after Britain and France have promised Constantinople to the Russians. So what are the consequences? Well, Constantinople is promised to the Russians at this point, so they get it. Which is good, because that means they can send their troops down to secure it. And you have your second convention of Nicaea sort of thing going on again. This time with the Russians being the hyperpower involved. At least acting like they are. And you suddenly have a whole load of Allied troops able to be moved to support the front against Austria and from alongside Russia. So that's probably where the Commonwealth Anzacs end up, fighting alongside Russia in Romania, more likely, against Austro-Hungary. There'll also be still supplies going through, but this is going to be a slightly harder fight. Again, if you win in the first time, you have a lot more flexibility. If you win in this time, you have made promises to Russia, and you have to start supplying them a lot. You also have the fact that I'm not sure the better Russian officers win. It's going to sound strange, but the better scenarios for Russia are either, I think, are either the first win, which is the better scenario for their supply lines, or the last win is better supply a chance for their generals to be good in charge. This one is the worst one for them winning because they still have mostly the very, very bad generals still wandering around, and yet they haven't reached the point. They haven't, but they aren't in as easy a position to recover. Simon Thompson. Considering French President and Foreign Minister could not tour St. Petersburg in July 1914 pre-war due to unrest, I think you get Russian Revolution before long. As I'm saying, I think it'll be the 1920s. But I also think, again, if you have it spread around far more, and it does stay after the 1920s, and the Romanovs are spread more around, that actually makes revolution far more difficult because often the idea is that revolution is something which is popular in Russia. It is not always. There is large chunks of Russia which do not get involved in the revolution and which are not supportive of the revolution. The whites have a large number of supporters. So if you hadn't had the Romanovs go down quite so quickly, he could have had an interesting thing happen. It'd be like, why not sturdy fresh from his Falklands victory? Because he's needed elsewhere. Then who knows? How much bigger would the fleet have been if Fisher had not had to scrap Victoria's sister, narrowly avoided the war? They would have had more pre-generals on there. Back in a second again. Someone just called for me. Right then, let's see. Let's see. Let's go through this. In Cal, Ottoman Empire was known as the sick man of Europe. Allies expected it seems to me they would roll over. Well, the Ottomans have been having a lot of trouble in previous wars, so yes, it was, and that does lead to a lot of overconfidence. But during these early exchanges, they have reason for it. Jack, there is always the option that even if a revolution erupted around the war end, with lots of supplies stocked in Ukrainian ports, intervening forces could influence the outcome of the civil war. Yes, and you might end up with a split Russia rather than a Soviet Union. Vision, sounds like the US Civil War. Union fleet fights past forts, taking the city, and then the forts fall, as with Farragut and New Orleans. Pretty much. Anonymous, how many crew were recovered from sunken UK ships? They mostly got out. Jeff, Kitchen and Churchill need to be on the same page such that Anzac 29th and Iron Divisions going with the battleships. Pretty much, I would, yeah. Again, that would have helped here. Hi, Joe, 191. Sam Thompson, the signs in 1917 read peace and bread. Those sound like anti-war sentences. The Tsar was also a dud, so no one else were doomed. Yes, this is 1915, though. If you have food coming in, that makes people less hungry, which would be some of the supplies coming in. And if you're winning, 1917, they were losing the war, as far as many of their people were concerned. So if you've been winning the war and you're getting food, that does tend to paper over cracks. It's one of those things. If you are winning, people tend to like you. You would need to get the East Bank as well. You could do that, but, you get to it. Let's see. The US ambassador to Constantinople, Henry Montagu, reported that Constantinople expected to be attacked. The Ottomans felt they could only hold out for a few hours if the attack had resumed on 19th of March. Furthermore, he thought that Turkey itself might well disintegrate as a state once the capital fell. Eh. De Roebeck thought actually afterwards, after losing so many ships and failing to achieve his goal, that he would be superseded by morning, and actually was betting on Keyes being put in charge for the 19th. Although the odds are that Keyes would have gone straight for the attack or the attack to Dagenham. Plus, you have to remember there are lots of minefields which are covered by shorter range guns which aren't worn out by the firing on the 18th. But again, I think they could have done it if they pushed ahead. A few little modifications could have made it viable. Having troops there, all sorts of things could have made it. And then, once you're in, you've got the supplies. Unfortunately, at this point, Constantinople is promised to Russia. So they get it. Well, hey! They get to have the full control of it, and they get to send the troops to secure it. Does Turkey disintegrate at this point? I think you have a very interesting civil war probably take place in the Asia part of Turkey. I think you have the Europe part of Turkey, i.e. that environment around Constantinople, Istanbul, become a Russian area. I would Romania and Bulgaria probably get along quite happily in World War One and start to decide they're going to fight for the Allies, because they probably are looking at the Russians going, hang on, you guys are probably going to lose because the Allies are now winning. Allies have encircled everyone else. Yeah, we need those allies on our side in order to counterbalance Russia. Hmm. And Cox, if there's anything beautiful and noble in the modern in human experience, I've found it. It's found its. Ah, and now we've gone to discussing China now. No, actually, sorry, my numbers were the casualties. 115 on Isabel and one on Ocean, I think. Yep, it's not a lot of people in many ways, thankfully. So, point 3. Now, this point, you finally do get the troops turning up. So, this point becomes a slightly different scenario. The fact is, the Allies came on the 18th of April. Let's say they still failed. They went back. This is both the least likely to succeed, but also potentially is the most interesting, because it's the first time the Allies turn up with troops as well as ships. So actually turn up as they should have the first time. They do some practice on Mudros, Lemnos Island. And then they go and take that. Problems, though. Let's start off with a big problem. You've now done 2 attacks. You've told everyone where you're going. And the Ottomans have formed up. So what we're pretending is that what you have to imagine for this to succeed is the Ottomans do no work at all. The Ottomans go, we won, we're secure, let's just restock the ammunition. And so the Allies turn up and everything's where it was last time, and they just mow through it all. By this point, a lot of things have happened. For starters, you have the 2 Nikolais. They're starting to win a lot of things. This guy's a Cossack, and his troops are fierce and very successful. Neither of these officers would you really call from the front ranks of Russian society, but they have been very successful, and they're being given their positions now. So, what does it mean for the Allies? Well, this is the interesting thing. Okay, we get into this. So they force it. But the Russians now have 2 very successful generals in the Caucasus regions. and fighting on the Caucasus front, who are then going to start advancing through the Caucasus. They're going to be the officers the Russia that you're going to be dealing with, that you're going to be securing. They've already won victories. They're going to join up with the Allies, and they're going to start advancing into towards Austria-Hungary. Oh, how do I put this? They're, of course, currently fighting in Georgia, Armenia. That's the moment. And they're going to want to go into Turkey. So they're going to be fighting through. They've won these victories. And they're going to be talking about bringing their troops to fight Austria-Hungary, but they're probably going to talk about fighting their way through Ankara, Bursa, to Istanbul. That way. So you already talked about, the fact is you do need to control both banks. And the Russians, with control of Istanbul, will start being. This will mean the Russians, yes, they'll be getting supplies. Yes, they have a huge army anyway, and they have lots and lots of people, and they can keep sending them there. But they'll now be distracted by another big war, because they won't be content with taking over just Constantinople. They will want it all. They will want it all. And that's a problem for the Allies to deal with, because that means you have a full war going on in there, and you have no real benefit short term from this win. Because that means there's going to be so much resources the Russians are going to devote to fighting the war there. They're not going to be devoting more to attacking the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians. You can only do that if you start deploying your own troops. So you end up having a sort of second front commitment where the Allies and probably especially the British Commonwealth troops, the Empire troops, would be sending a lot of forces to fight in southwest Russia against Austro-Hungary in order to keep the Russian, in order to balance the Russian effort, which you'd be supplying now. Whole debate going on about Wilson. Shomak, that man has a fantastic moustache. We'll go back to the generals while talking about these things. And thanks, Samuel Thompson. Very kind of you. Thank you. Winnie Fox, I feel the Boer Wars did not produce useful officers in terms of Great War. Taught the wrong lessons. That they did. But they produced some good officers, but not good enough officers. And it showed British how poorly they were equipped, and did help with the Haldane reforms. But leave that to one side. So, Russia has these two officers. Now, admittedly, if the Ottoman Empire falls, you don't have to have this army going off to Persia. How many people realize that the Russians send in World War I sent an army to help the British in Persia? They do, under the command of him. This one's Nikolai Nikolaevich Baratov. And this one, with the wonderful moustache you can see so clearly, he has full beard and hat. He has, the big fluffy hat. He has the lovely, impressive moustache. General Nikolai Nikolaevich Yudanich. I do love the fact that one is spelt with a Y and one isn't, and I'm not sure if that's official or what, but that's how I found them, so I've left it as that, and I hope it's right. Hello, Derp Squad. They're just evil. New Isambard King of Brunel 4472. So Isambard King of Brunel flying a Scotsman. Wilson deserves to be locked in a room with only a Blackburn. That's. I'm not sure whether that's worse for the Blackburn or for Wilson. I feel more sorry for the Blackburn in those scenarios. So you suddenly, with these two officers winning things, and the cost of the landings, because let's be honest, they would have cost in terms of personnel, because they would have been, to extent some expecting something. They would have been painful. I think if we go back to the first scenario, that probably shortens the war by a year, if not more. And I do hate it normally when people say things like, this weapon shortened the war by this long, and you go, no, you can't testify that. But the thing is, if the Russians don't declare, if there isn't a peace treaty like with the Russia, which allows Germany to redeploy all those forces across to try in that last offensive, then because they're still fighting, and if they're still fighting and actually not winning everything because the Russians actually have enough supplies and infrastructure they can sustain their forces properly, you have a different scenario. You suddenly have a grinding war on both sides for Germany, and they can't afford to win that. Jermak, Fitch's father's name. There may be, it needs to be checked, that Baratov's father was Nikola, like Tesla, and Yunich's father was Nicholas, like the Tsar. Possibly. I know that I did know that one, but said I'm still not quite sure. Cox, I highly recommend you guys read Thomas Mann's warning, The Magic Mountain. May well be very well lays bare the various prejudices and pretenses of pre-war Europe. Oh, there were lots of them. Surprised you could cover them all in one book. Gets a bit nutty. Does get a bit nutty. So, conclusion. And after this, we'll sort of go into the question session, but yeah, we'll do the conclusion and the questions. So, anything which avoids this would have been good. Anything which avoids the evacuation of Gallipoli and actually sees success is good. But here's the thing: if Gallipoli succeeds, the ultimate point is it doesn't keep Russia in the war. I'm not saying revolution doesn't happen, and please note I'm not saying that at all. I'd say it'd be delayed to the 1920s, but Victories tend to keep populations happier. Supplies of food tend to keep populations happier. Actually having equipment to fight the enemy, i.e. good uniforms when you need them so they don't stink, bullets, guns which work, bayonets, aircraft, all those things tend to keep your army's morale up higher. And also, it's going to sound strange, but victorious armies tend to be far more loyal than defeated armies, or armies worried about being sent to the front and dying. Conscripts who are worried about being sent to the front and losing will rebel. Conscripts which think that they're going to go to the front, have a couple of easy victories, come back with all their limbs attached, and be the belle of the ball when they get home, and everyone's going, "Oh, don't you look good in your uniform? Aren't you a dashing young man?" tend to be very, very loyal. So this is the thing. Gallipoli is a strategic gamble, but it's a necessary gamble. You have to play it. But the fact is, the way it was played was absolutely terrible. It was absolutely... The whole point is, you should have won on the first time. You should have turned up with troops. You should have turned up with ships. You should have been prepared to accept some of the losses, because, again, the first attack goes in, they start strengthening things. The second attack goes in, they do a lot of strengthening things. The third attack goes in, it's fighting the strongest it can do. And it still almost does quite well, but doesn't do that good. Yeah. It's annoying. Back in a second. No. Not doing that now. Not being that cruel. Send things was. So. The whole point is, it's going to be a mess. It's always going to be a mess. But they could win it. The Allies could have won it. They should have won it. The fact that they didn't is more down to Ottoman success than Allied failure, but it's also, at least in part, down to Allied not coordinating, and it all goes back to the same two people. Right at the beginning. Churchill and Kitchener. Churchill had the idea, and it was in many ways the right idea, but Kitchener was focused on the Western Front, putting everything into that. One great big push, one great big offensive. You've all heard this so many times before. The fact is, again, it is a legacy of the Boer War in many ways, and other wars, in that the British perspective often was that you make a big, on the army, big punch against the enemy's main strength, defeat it, and then you've won. That's a great war technique for fighting a weaker power. For fighting someone like Imperial Germany, no. It's not what you want. And so, yeah. And here's the thing. This all takes place in 1915. If you have this happen in Gallipoli in 1915 successful, you have supplies coming to Black Sea, you don't probably have the breakdown of the railway infrastructure in 1916. The railways wouldn't have been under as much pressure. There'd be more supplies coming in for them, all sorts of things to keep the railways going. Second, if you don't have the infrastructure breakdown, and if you have the grain supplies flowing from Russia, they have money coming in. They have exports. They're able to feed people. All these things matter. Tav Thompson. The biggest thing if it succeeded, Mel Gibson wouldn't have got an acting career. Oof. William Cox. The thing that gets me is the Indian-Chinese war at the top of the world, going on at present. It brings true Einstein's assurance that the one after the other they all fought with sticks and stones. Yeah. Costa, did the Allies learn anything major from this campaign? Yes, coordinate, talk to each other. Roger Keyes ends up getting set up and starts combined operations in World War II and basically spends a whole period drumming into need to talk to everyone. actually have a conversation with your opposite numbers and know what they're doing. Jeff Ealer, Gallipoli saw 15 divisions used in total, an actual army for very little gain. Yes, an actual army for very little gain, yes. But it could have been successful. Could have been very useful. And I don't think 15 divisions would have made that big an impression on the Western Front at that time. Actually. Right. Jeff Baylor asked Kitchener if he could have used another army on Western Front in 1915. He knew it was looking at a long-haul meat grinder there and needed troops for it. That's trouble. Kitchener was obsessed with numbers of troops. He didn't actually think about how to use them. If I'd had 15 divisions of troops waiting in the UK ready for the Western Front, I'd have used them for an amphibious operation. Gone in round the side of but Kitchener wouldn't have done that. Kitchener would have thrown 15 more divisions into the meat grinder because, honestly, that was all he saw. The central of the Western Front, and I can understand him from that perspective, but I don't consider him the most imaginative thinker. I do agree that Winston Churchill doesn't always get things right. But I also think if Kitchener had supplied those 15 divisions in February and they'd been ready for the first attack, even 6 or 8 divisions have been ready for the first attack, so you could put a corps in on both sides to march up the coast as the ships move down, the troops land after them, seize the forts. I think you would have been overwhelmingly surprised at the success and also of what actually happened and how useful it would have been to the war. Animus, 15 Commonwealth divisions. They were not all Commonwealth divisions. This is one of the biggest myths that goes on about the Gallipoli. Let me just get it up. Did it? Okay, so 25th April 1915, the order of battle includes the 29th Division, which has such units as the 86th Brigade, 2nd Battalion Royal Fusiliers, they're a British unit, 1st Battalion Lancashire Fusiliers, 1st Battalion Royal Munster Fusiliers, 1st Battalion Royal Dublin Fusiliers, 87th Brigade, 2nd Battalion South Wales Borderers, 1st Battalion King's Own Scottish Borderers, 1st Battalion Royal Enskilling Fusiliers, 1st Border Regiment, and 88th Brigade, 4th Battalion Worcestershire Regiment, 2nd Battalion Hampshire Regiment, 1st Battalion Essex Regiment, 5th Battalion Royal Scots. It also includes a Royal Navy Division. made up of 2 Naval and 1 Royal Marine brigades. Which includes the Deal Battalion of the Royal Marine Light Infantry. And the Australian Division and New Zealand and Australian Division of the Anzac Corps. So, by my count, yes, there are 6 British brigades, 4 Australian brigades, 2 New Zealand brigades, and an Indian Mountain Artillery Brigade, and the Ceylon Planters Rifle Corps Regiment. Plus, there is a division of French soldiers there. Well, 2 brigades. In August 1915, later on, there's a Mediterranean Expeditionary Force is deployed, which includes 8th Corps, under Sir Francis Davis, which is the 29th Division, the 52nd Lowland Division, and the Royal Navy Division. And 9th Corps, the 10th Irish Division, 11th Northern Division, and the 13th Western Division. And the Australian-New Zealand Corps, the Anzac troops of the 1st Division, 2nd Division, and their troops, plus the 29th Infant Indian Brigade, and 2 divisions of French troops. So again, yes, the Anzacs are a major force, but it is not all about the Commonwealth troops. It is quite a lot of their own troops being deployed. And they soon committed forces to Salonika and other places. Yes, they did. Vision. Would success at Gallipoli end war before the US ends in 1917? Well, it could do. And I say this with an interesting perspective, because you win at Gallipoli, you have far more supplies flowing in. And America is probably going to be supplying these supplies, so you're going to be buying from America. It's going to help their industry and them grow, but it's also going to mean you're going to have far more Russian involvement. And yes, the people, Wilson often says, I don't want to get in war because Russia's fighting on one side. They're terrible, terrible people. That's as good as excuse as any. But there's also the fact that if the Allies win the war without Americans getting involved, then America's place in the world is not so safely secured. There's also the fact that legacy of World War World War II would be slightly different, because would World War II happen in the same way? Because if Russia is still the same power it is in 1939, who knows what happens? But it changes things significantly, let's say. German. How prevalent during the planning phase was an alternate concept of landing in Alexandria to cut only railroad to Palestine and collapse down on the front there? Not as much as you'd probably hope it would be. Although it should have been done as an extra option anyway. The French would not let the British land at Alexandria in their sphere of influence, and were too weak to do it themselves. Pretty much, yep. Donzanveld, hello. Death Squad, Anonymous. The Russian Revolution had been a long time coming. Taking the Ottoman Empire out of World War I wouldn't have stopped it. It might have allowed the first revolutionary illusion to resist the Bolshevik one. I think actually it could well have been that case. I also think the revolution would have happened in the 1920s. And I wouldn't be surprised if it could have been a political revolution, not just more than the coup it was. It's going to sound strange, but my point is this. If it happens after mass mobilization has ended and a fairly successful war, then the Tsar has a lot of troops. But he still has to listen to the politics going on. So I wouldn't be surprised if you end up with at least an attempt made to find a middle ground along the lines of a constitutional monarchy that Britain is in. It could be interesting. And honest, impact. Sorry to strike a nerve. It's not striking a nerve. It's one of those things I hear about Gallipoli so often is it was sort of the British were throwing away all these Commonwealth lives. And you go, there's a whole lot of British troops there as well. Yes, the Anzac contribution is massive and important, but it's part of the whole effort that's going on there. And the fact that they are there, to an extent, this one makes the most sense for them to be involved in a way because their security at this time rests on a strong Britain and a strong links between Britain and the Far East and Australasia, where they are. With Goban sitting in Constantinople, no matter what it's called, able to come out with the Ottoman with the fighting going on in Palestine between the Brits and the various forces of the Ottomans, taking the Ottomans out of the war suddenly shortens all the trade links between them and the UK. So, because it makes the Mediterranean far safer for transit, the Suez far safer for transit, and means that supplies don't necessarily have to go round Africa. So it's sensible for them to be there, but it could be better handled. And one of the better handled that needs to be is actually them to have turned up together as a group early. Sam Thompson, British Expeditionary Armies poking into the edges of Europe were a long tradition. Duke of Marlborough, 1756 to 63 war, Napoleonic, yep. It's a tradition of British. And it does work quite well sometimes. Sometimes. Hmm. Jeff Healy, you left out the Newfoundland regiment. I didn't see them on my list. Bolivar, 75,000 Anzacs, about the same French, and 345,000 British and Indian. Most of those British. Incox, if you remember that Bolsheviki were fighting all those nations and each other during 1919-1920, almost everyone contributed forces to support the White Russians. Yeah, but the trouble is the good White Russian generals were far too junior. And honest, I don't think the UK, victorious alone in 1919, is going to try to isolate the USA. Nope. They're probably still being very friends with them. And honest, I think the US becomes a global power no matter what by 1970. I agree. But I think that's off the topic of today's discussion. But, that's good. Unless Nicholas II had enacted major reforms, there would have still been some form of uprising Russian. Given its resistance to reform before World War I, can't see that happening. Mm-hmm. They were trying to get a constitutional monarchy. Problem was, old St. Nicholas II didn't care much for a democracy. The question is, how loyal are these troops post World War I in 1920? That is a good question. But again, if they've won wars, had lots of medals and things for it, and are still being fed and paid. Vision. Judging what happened domestically in Russia during War with Japan, the war created the conditions and opportunity for a successful revolution coup. Yeah, probably. Combined operation takes Gallipoli and Istanbul. 2. Supply lines open to Russia and Turkey surrenders. 3. Bulgaria, a bribed allied with Andropol. 4. Balkan offensive knocks Austria-Hungary out. Yep, pretty much. That's fine. Let's assume Gallipoli goes right. What happens? Obviously, the Germans march 10 divisions south. End of story. Do they know? Where are those 10 divisions going to come from? It's going to sound strange. You march 10 divisions south. Look at this map. Where are they coming to? They're going to have to be moved through Austria-Hungary. They're going to have to go through Romania, Bulgaria, or through Serbia. There's already fighting going on in those areas. They will march into a force which will resist them. They'll have Russian troops coming. They'll have British troops coming. Oh, yeah. And there's already been talk about the huge rail guns and guns the French were mounting on railways, etc. Well, imagine what happens to those troops if they get in range of the naval guns that the Brits would, that the British fleet would have there. Plus, again, the odds are you have, if you've got Italy fighting on your side, if you've got Greece fighting on your side, which probably happened, and if again, think about it from this perspective. If this knocks out the Ottoman Empire, think of all those troops who are fighting the Ottoman Empire at various points around the world, down in Egypt, Palestine, various other places, suddenly are free to be concentrated. The Germans might send 10 divisions, but how many divisions would be concentrated up in that region quickly enough to stop them? And how many divisions would build up there? How many divisions would the Germans need to deploy? It's not a good scenario. If you take Constantinople and you knock out Ottoman Empire, you have shortened the war. That is the obvious thing. I think Britain would have pushed Tsar Nicholas to constitutional democracy, monarchy of some kind. Probably the aid would have been contingent on getting some of the political buy-in from some of the Duma, etc. Post World War One, they could have done that, and they would have done it. It wouldn't have been the first time Britain had pushed such things on countries. Sam Thompson, what if Kaiser Wilhelm II died in childbirth and you don't get naval raids versus Britain? Would Britain have sat out a version of Great War? Yep. Before you ask, the Franco-Prussian War, Britain had sat out quite happily. As long as the Prussians aren't threatening Britain's naval supremacy and aren't threatening Belgium, which Britain guarantees, it doesn't care. Honestly.
Hmm. Hmm. No. Well, they did march themselves into Italy. Yes, I know. They marched themselves against fight against Italy. They do march themselves, and I know they marched themselves, Thomas. I'm not saying they couldn't march themselves. I'm just saying actually getting them there when the fighting's going on and when those forces are there is going to take time. By the time you get there, the forces which are freed up from the fall of the Ottoman Empire could quite easily be there. And here's the other scenario. You might well have Turkish troops now defending it and now fighting alongside the Allies. That could be Kemal's price he has to pay to stop the Allies dismembering Turkey, or at least Asia Turkey. Mm. Sure, man. If Constantinople fell and the Ottoman Empire fell, would Entente troops to garrison due to World War One, would the region of Balkans turn into a chaotic mess of warring militias? I don't think so, because they have quite good, strong local politics. I don't think they would turn into a mass of warring militias. I think it would turn into multiple states. But you already see there are already multiple states there. I have a feeling you find Romania, Bulgaria, all sorts of areas sort of start being their own areas, basically. So, Thompson, thinking the disproportionate impact of Gallipoli on Australia and New Zealand, given their much smaller populations at the time, then the mistake hold. Yep. Hmm. 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 Basically, we're pretending that these things actually, that Gallipoli was actually well run. The whole point with Gallipoli is that it could have succeeded if it had actually been properly organized. Ah, Rifila. 1st Battalion Royal Newfoundland Regiment of the 88th Brigade. Yeah, there you go. Newfoundlands are there. Vision. A democratic and free market Russia in the 20th century could have perhaps equaled the US economically and in soft power. Could have been interesting. Shumak, I remember someone said that the Soviets offered 100 divisions to the defense of Czechoslovakia, would place them on their border with Germany. The issues are about the same as the Germans, bringing divisions south. And where would Britain get reinforcements for Gallipoli if there was a political pressure for action in France? These two questions are crucial, I think. If Britain is building up and in its element, of what, early 1917? Okay, they could have dumped more colonial troops in there, but supply and command and control was a huge issue. Let's avoid the Somme for a moment. I would argue that, as I've said repeatedly, if Gallipoli goes successful and you have this front, then all those troops that you have fighting in Palestine, and you have some very good generals out there in Palestine and various other places, and all those troops you have fighting in other parts of the world, Persia, etc., suddenly can come to this area. So in many ways, you can condense the world war down. Dope Squad. I'm not sure if Nicholas II would have accepted the constitutional monarchy. He was a fervent abolitionist, but would have probably gone to civil war to prevent constitutional monarchy. He might well have found himself got rid of. Drowsiness. When I went into bookstores, it was interesting to see books on the fall of Constantinople in 1453. I wonder what cultural impact it would have had on society if it fell to the Allies in 1915. Colossal. Okay, but that's assuming we're assuming the whole point of this what if discussion is what if Gallipoli has succeeded. So the various point is the first thing you have to concede that somehow Gallipoli would have succeeded, and as I said, the only point at which it could succeed really, I've picked out the 3 points where it could succeed, and the 3 points, as I've said, are the 19th of February, the 18th of March, on 20th of April. 20th of April is in many ways the least likely to succeed because it basically presumes that the Ottomans do nothing between the 18th of March and the 20th of April. The 19th of February is the one most likely to succeed, when you could have had naval forces and troops turn up and literally storm in. There really wasn't much there, and the 18th of March is probably the most likely to have happened. Bolivar, if Gallipoli is a win, Germany might not have sent anything at Verdun. They might be sending those troops elsewhere. Remember again, they can't produce 10 divisions from nowhere. So you can either launch the attack on Verdun, or you can send those divisions to fight somewhere else. Anonymous, Russia suffers from endemic corruption and severe winter. It's never going to be as productive man for man as Italy. Anonymous, is the objective 1, resupply Russia, or 2, knock Turkey out of the war? I just presumed it was 2. It's both. Resupply Russia and knock Turkey out of the war. That's the. In fact, actually, 1 is probably the biggest objective. If you can resupply Russia, then knocking Turkey out of the war and knocking the Ottoman Empire out of the war is great. But if you can resupply Russia and keep them in the war, then you have a far stronger battle line. Okay, we'll go down on that road then. But you're opening the Pandora of what ifs Pandora box. I know, but this was, as I said, this is a patron suggestion. It was voted for by all of you, and I accept it because I actually think it's a good thing to think about. Because Gallipoli turned into such a disaster, it's always presumed it was stupid. But actually, I think Gallipoli would have been one of the most successful operations in World War II if it had actually World War I, if it had actually been done properly, and it could have been done properly because things like Gallipoli had been done before. A second. Let's see. It's basically in the Middle East, Russia, and imperialism mixed together, and those are separate issues. Already quite it could be fun. You have to remember again that this is in the context of World War One. It's in the context of the Orthodox Christianity as it is at the time, and yes, it becomes an issue. But also, let's put it this way: the British would probably put a garrison in Persia and Iraq to protect India. They would. They'd be Indian troops. They'd probably be British Indian troops, but that would still free up quite a lot of troops to go and take part in this. There are many scenarios where it works out better. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 is culturally comparable to London falling to Germany in 1940. Constantinople in 1915 was hardly the world capital of London in 1915 or 40. Probably, but not quite the same. Anonymous. In this scenario, Russia winds up a constituted democracy, but possibly in a Balkans war in the 1920s, unless Britain wants a Russian Revolution and civil war. Yeah, pretty much. There's lots of fun things going on. Mm-hmm. Martin Knock, if Gallipoli win, does Britain hold in West and send most troops east to attack Germany from there? That certainly becomes a thing to do, because the French army and the French are dominant in the West. The British could have far more, because despite the Russians would be even more dependent upon British supplies and British money and British stock to do things. So the Russians might supply a larger army, but it might well be like a rerun of the Prussians and Wellington in the Napoleonic Wars, but with, of course, the Wellington role taken by Allenby, probably. Yeah. I could imagine Allenby taking on the role of sorry, I can imagine Allenby taking on the role of a modern Wellington in World War One. Sean Brennan. My scenario is Ottoman Empire becoming like the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Russian Empire in 1919, but added Greece and Bulgaria armies after successfully taking off Constantinople. Huh? William Cox. Each major participant wanted something different, was only willing to compromise so far. That is most Allied wars in history. Sean Thomas, here. Compared to the butchery of Western Front, Gallipoli at least had a modicum of hope and possibility of success. Yeah, Passionel. Thank you, Sam Thompson. Dirt Squad. Money and material bit for the Entente until they realize the pit is endless and can't be filled, so cut off the majority of supplies. Naval. Oh, agree. Gallipoli was a brilliant strategic idea, but the fallout would inevitably have been equivalently as large. It wasn't doomed to fail, it was doomed, however, as set out. Lack of aggression act. It does need a lot of push to get it through. Mundock, or does Britain do its traditional thing and use minimum army on continent, but bankroll France and Russia to do most of the fighting, while UK involved mainly through RN? I think they would need, because it was seen they would need to have troops on the ground in Europe. That was part of the thing, and that was what drove the British Expeditionary Force. But I think the moment you have Gallipoli fought and won, and you have British troops in there, you then have the scenario where the Germans have to start thinking about their navy doing a breakout because they have allies coming in on every side. Jeff Wheeler, the one concept of World War I is that Austro-Hungary will fall apart, even if victorious of things. Yeah, probably. And... Hello? Right, so... I do have viewers according to that. I'm an excellent connection. But... XSplit has decided to restart itself, so I have no idea what went on there. Oh well. We'll do 222. Right then, so we'll start off with the general questions now. And on this and anything else you fancy asking about. It's always fun to talk. And I'll start this all the way back at the beginning, the slideshow, so that's just clicking through. Behind me. Actually, Derp Squad, I would say they do understand how much the Ottomans can resist naval operations. They just presume the firepower they're bringing will be enough to overwhelm it. And honestly, they are right in February and March, but by April, things have changed. The trouble is, the forces being sent haven't really changed. And that's a trouble. If you'd had the whole Grand Fleet come down in April, that would have been a very different scenario. Yeah. Whole Grand Fleet turning up, that would have been problematic for them. But as Bolivar points out, Derp Squad, Churchill was prepared to lose the ships. The Admiral Roebuck wasn't. And Admiral Roebuck always seems to think he's going to lose more ships than he actually does. Brandon Atkinson, why were so many nations unstable in World War I compared to World War II? It's not like the world hadn't seen world wars before. I would say they were just as unstable in World War II. I would say they were unstable the whole time. There's a lot of idea that countries are stable. Often, and we look at them and go, oh, they're actually unstable when we look at them in detail. I would argue most countries can exist as looking as both stable and unstable depending on how deep you look at them. Britain is stable. It looks stable at the moment. There's lots of big debates and lots of big politics going on, but there's not much chance in anyone's opinion of a revolution. But if, let's say, in 5 years down the line, something out of the ordinary did happen, and I don't know, I seize power as one of the triumvirate of bilge pumps are put in charge of the new global coalition from Britain, people would go, you could see the instability, this is how it reacted. There is a trouble with reading history backwards. There are often times where you can read about great movements and great political things which don't come to anything. Good example is the Peasants' Revolt. Gets nowhere. Henry VIII faces many issues during his long reign. They come to nothing. If any of those had actually succeeded something, we might have had to deal with a far earlier civil war than we actually did. Then you've got after Britain. Usually, you get in the market that Britain has the Civil War takes place far earlier, and that inoculates us against these things. No, we still have plenty of battles which could have won, because they don't. Were seen as stable, and it's therefore, oh yes, it never actually had a chance because look at these things, because it shows stability. But if they succeeded, people will be looking at similar things, but from a different perspective, and saying, look, it shows instability. So you have to be careful with sometimes with history. Always ask the question, what is this person's starting point and what is their ending point when they're writing it? Animus, were the errors merely tactical or strategic? Mostly strategic. Tactical errors they did have in terms of some of their deployment of forces, but strategic of not actually turning up with troops and troops at the same time is, I think, the big problem. It would also, it's going to sound strange. Let's say on the first attack, on the 19th of February, let's say you don't achieve the whole route in one day. But if you've landed troops on the fort and taken the forts you could take in that day, then you can withdraw your ships and you won't lose control. The Ottomans might counterattack at night. They might even take one or two forts back. Unlikely. They don't have many troops there at that time. But you have control of the vast majority. Then your ships can come forward. The fact is, without the troops, there is no way of holding on to what you get. The Navy can destroy it. The Navy can force their way past it, but they cannot take it without the soldiers. And soldiers can't take it without the Navy fire support. And the two need to work together. JP, do not affect the Guadalupe. Forget to get the Guadalupe on Thursday. I'm more worrying about the Wolverine, but okay. Any good essays on the Fort Process of Roebuck? Castle Steel had something on it. There's a lot of stuff in various biographies of Roger Keyes. I know, it's always fun to listen. Learning a lot here, thank you. Well, it's a pleasure. I said, these are basically seminars. I always treat them far more as discussions than the recorded videos, which are sort of lectures. Vision, would post-Jutland make a difference in terms of neutral mentality over ship losses, given losses at Jutland? Probably not. Maxi, I always have Geoffrey Palmer's Admiral Roebuck from Tomorrow Never Dies in my mind when I hear about Admiral de Roebuck. Possibly. But Geoffrey Palmer's Admiral Roebuck is a far tougher admiral in my mind. Geoffrey, what is the current role of Iron Admirals of the fleet, and how does Michael Clapp fit into that role de facto? There aren't that many admirals of the fleet wandering around still at the moment. A couple, but not many. And usually they're supposed to be able to advise the Prime Ministers permanently. And I don't, unfortunately, because Michael Clapp doesn't have that rank, he's not called to advise Prime Minister, but I'm fairly sure he gets called to advise various naval officers quite regularly. And you'll hear more from him on the 30th of December. Although I do have to apologize because I have a feeling that the nearly 2 hours and 20 minutes, I am still trying to find a spot where I can... Well, you must remember, I always do it so there's a bit which overlaps. So I was going to turn it into two 80-minute videos. 80-minute podcasts. But it's actually doing it so it sounds right, because Michael and Julian are talking, and I don't want to cut it up, and it just you could end up having a very, very long podcast on the 30th, which could be 2 hours and 20 minutes, and on a note from me going, basically, I just couldn't find a point which I wanted to cut this at. Greg Sassy, I think Dr. Clark would be the Grand Mufti rather than Archbishop. That's scary. Thunder Camera. Okay. What are you guys planning behind the scenes on bilge pumps? Also, would that make Iron Brew an official drink and Blackburn the official religion? On the latter, probably not, but could be interesting. And the fact that YouTube are now trying to block Blackburn, getting worrying. And Iron Brew would definitely become an official drink. And okay, what are you guys planning behind the scenes on bilge pumps? There are lots of things going on in bilge pumps. We have Jeremy Larkin tomorrow. That's the one recording we have tomorrow, which is going to be fun. I have a feeling the listeners who we usually cause upset with will be upset by that one, but a lot of us will be interested in it. We have lots of interesting things going on. We're getting lots of interesting feedback. We do love some of the messages we get from fans of bilge pumps. We do love some of the fan messages we get. It makes us all very, very happy. For the amount of work we put into it, it's one of those things for all three of us. It's the project which none of us get any money from, because that's not why we do it, and because it's not set up that way. It's entirely voluntary, and it's put out over SimSec for them to help them out. And yet we love all the feedback we get from it, the discussions we get from it, all that stuff that comes back through bilge pumps just makes it not. It's going to sound strange. It's fun to do, so that would make it worthwhile in itself. But the feedback and everything else we get from it just makes it a pleasure to do. We are planning on having a couple of weeks off from recording in January. But you probably will only hear about. There'll probably only be about a week, which we won't actually have one airing because we've got some pre-recorded stuff ready to go. Possibly, we might well have something recorded to go. Okay. Yeah, Henry VIII. My goodness, what was that? But Germany is one of these school examples of being stable. In fact, they needed they needed so many things to try and get together in the 1930s. Weimar does take, as William Cox says, it takes a lot of flack it does not deserve. Unfortunately for Weimar is that they did have some shrewd people in charge. They also got a lot of them died just before they had their biggest problems. Animals, lack of concentration force, underestimating the opponent seems to be a central error, right? Yep, pretty much that's the problem with Gallipoli. And for what could have been the result, that's inexcusable. Shoot me. Do you know where one would get engineering drawings of naval aircraft? I'm thinking of making some 3D models in CAD for 3D printing. That's interesting. 3D models of aircraft. I know where you can get all the details for the various aircraft, but I think that the actual models... Drac, I will have to ask him, because he tends to have a line on these things. Well, no, I have no issues with that length of a podcast. Carmen, can you release one on New Year's and New Year's special? There will be one released New Year's week, but it'll be released on the Wednesday. We release them on the Wednesday, and we do that because the SimSex normal one comes out on a Sunday, their Sea Control podcast, so ours comes out on a Wednesday, so it's that's how they fare out, and they keep separate that way. So they don't interfere with each other on the site. Constance, I'm looking forward to the paddle warship or boat episode. I'm actually somewhat prepared for once. Oh, cool. Turning 3434, 480p. Well, I haven't got my office set up yet. Once I have my garden office set up and I can set up my PC and get that all down from the attic and working, I will also do the whole thing of getting the paid for the paid for XSplit broadcast and try and broadcast in the better quality one. Okay, IKB New Isambard Kingdom Brunel Flying Scotsman. That's just trying to be cruel to YouTube. Turning 343, but when will Beltrams lift the curse? Who knows? Who knows? I would love to say that it hasn't happened again, but it has happened again. I don't know. We will get, it's the thing is, I'm starting to get a rep, I think, because I'm the one booking people, and people are going, oh, so are you not booking any women for bilge pumps? And I'm going, yes, I am. It's just every time we book them, something happens. And it's always good stuff. It's always legitimate stuff that you sort of sit there and go, I feel really bad. You see, the thing is, I'm wondering if the curse is a curse on any female guests who wants to come on bilge pumps, that they're going to have something go wrong in their life, which means they have to deal with that over everything else. It just seems, I don't know what's going on. Carmen, any news on getting the mic and jingles? We can always hope. I haven't heard yet. Michael is the senior surviving naval commander from the last Royal Navy Hot War. Yes, and if the Royal Navy had been sensible in 1982, he would have been made a rear admiral and kept in the service. Oh. Jabila, can you get Chris Parry for bilge pumps? Which does market your YouTube channels? Yeah, I suppose it does market our YouTube channels. And well, we are going to get Chris Parry. We're going to invite him in New Year. We've got a list of people to have on in 2020. It's 2021. It's going to seem strange, but one of the reasons why we are going to have a sort of a bit of a gap in January of recording is we are taking stock and working out how we're going to push things forward and who we want to have on bilge pumps and what we want to do, because bilge pumps has grown very organically. It started off as we were doing 3 episodes because of COVID, because of all the lockdowns, and just something nice for some people to listen to and something a bit fun. And it's turned into something great and really amazing. But we haven't had a chance to sort of sit back and go, we need to organise this. And we're doing specials. We're doing a lot more specials, special videos. We have now got
a friend of mine helping out with organization and getting things put together, and it's it's good. She's very helpful, and it's kind of strange because behind the scenes we have this wonderful person helping us out with some of the things we're doing and organization wise, but we can't get anyone on the front of the house. But at Myrtle Panda from Twitter, one of my pals is helping us out with some of the research and legwork to make sure that it all comes together, and we all have the same sort of synthesized block of research. What do you think? Sam Thompson, how many Russian dreadnoughts were in the Black Sea in 1915? Were they supposed to assist the Anglo-French force at Gallipoli or other Russian assets? Not really enough, and no, other Russian assets do get involved in terms of their minesweepers and some of their things they're doing. If they had sailed up there, if the Allies had made further progress, you do think the Russians would have probably got involved. Mm-hmm. How does the campaign change if the Dardanelles were a land bridge with a port on either side? That becomes an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. But once you have the Dardanelles, you can move troops into the Sea of Marmara with no issues. Lots of large caliber naval guns on the city will just speed matters up. Yep. I think a build trumps with Dr. Clark, Angela Lambert, and Mighty Jingles would be hilarious. Although poor Drac and Jamie wouldn't get a word in, and the rest of us would be deaf. That could be fun. Pigeon, much cooler to be a Commodore than a Rear Admiral. I agree, but you know. Sometimes I love build trumps. What about nuclear weapon special? I know a specific woman that can help you with that. No idea if she's here though. Mel? Potentially. If you can't track her down here, track her down on Discord and down on Discord and see if she wants to talk to us. Let's see if we can do that. Carmen, should you need anything, I'm ready to delve deep, Doctor. Thank you. Have a good day, Doctor. See you next stream, and here in next build trumps. Yes, that's tomorrow. William Cox, Major Nick has been doing some videos covering naval matters of World of Warships. Cool. That's good. By the time they've brought troops to take the forts, they need to bring in the ships to a heavily mined area covering guns. They'd also have land on Asia Minor. Never had enough men. Well, the thing is, again, if you turn up, that's the thing. If you bring the troops and everything on the 19th of February in 1915, you achieve a lot more quickly. Carmen, why are you getting Michael Clapp and Jingles? Get the F-34 back, so they don't lose me. Steve George, and yes, he's going to be coming back. He's basically got a permanent invite. When he wants to come, he can come along. And back in a second.
Right. See. Carl, put the free on as Bill Trump's guest crew. I all free replace you guys for 1 week and 1 week only. I think we would all love that. Oh, that could be interesting. Michael Clapp, Jingles, and Steve George on as the guest Bill Trump's trio. My bet is Michael Clapp would take charge and start organizing it. Jingles would take on the Jamie role, probably. And Steve George would take on the Drac role. And be quite fun to listen to. Might actually have to try that. See if we can organise a guest only bilge pumps. Constress, we're almost at 5,000 subs. Not bad for an academic. I think I'm not sure how many away from it. I don't know. As you all know, I now currently have another ongoing debate with my lovely aunt. In that I love her dearly, but she's now said that I will never get to 10,000. I'll get to 5,000. She's happy with that, but she goes, no chance to get to 10,000. So my target is now 10,000 because she's been looking into the YouTube things, and she decided naval history is too niche. And whilst Drac has the World of Warships stuff, is what she just decides. That gets him more following. Mine won't get more than 5,000, and certainly never to 10,000. And I sat there and went, are you honestly going on like that? What's the point? But it's quite fun. And I was sort of going, well, I'll just see what happens. Never is a long time. Vision, how to go take photos of Jupiter and Saturn at twilight? Very much enjoy today's discussion. Enjoy. Make sure you don't have your flash turned on. Deadeye Glenn, hello! I don't think I've seen you before, so hello? They might not let you guys back. That would be interesting. That'd be a debate and a half. Danny Phillips, what if the French do a preemptive strike against Naval alongside the Russians as war is declared with Germany to neutralise the potential German ally? That would be an international response. It would be interesting if they did it. They might even succeed. French and Russian help a preemptive strike, getting through everything before there's an actual war going on. Might work, but you need to mobilise a lot of forces, and you need to find a way to get those forces into place. Greg Sarsi, you need to do a few more collabs with bigger channels. It could be interesting too. Donald Gammett, does your aunt know about Lindy Page? I have no idea. My aunt is a lovely lady, but and she watches the video, so I will say this: she's nothing I haven't said to her as well. She's a lovely lady. She's very, very passionate. But I don't disagree with her on the things. She's gone and watched a little bit on YouTube, and I think she's basing it more on her limited experience of YouTube and understanding and looking at it rather than the wider thing. And I myself am quite positive. I'd like to make at least 5,000 subscribers by Christmas. If I can do more, that'd be lovely, but 5,000 subscribers by Christmas would be quite nice. It's only about another 10 or so, and if I could make 10,000, I'd be fairly happy. I'd love to make 10,000 by my birthday next year, but, you know, I doubt that's going to happen. Sharon Thompson, Sheatham Plan almost got Paris, Gallipoli almost got Bosphorus, Cambria almost broke out, Kaiser Defensive Spring 1918 almost got Channel Ports. Sounds like bowling for Super Song, almost. 1-1 sucks. Yes, it does. Because well, Drac can do it. I don't see why not. You need to resuscitate the glorious field naval history to a new golden age. It would be quite fun to have it. Don't lie. Jeff Beeler, caught one of your World of Warships videos. You should put links into them all. I only think I've done one. Oh, Jeff Beeler, I have no doubt that Jingles, Michael, and Steve George would all get along really, really well. They were quite fun to have them chatting away. Hello, I've looked at a few of the live shows, but timing here in Texas is the greatest. I do follow on YouTube though. I think Drac. I followed him over one day. Oh, cool. I have to say, Drac's got a lot of cool plans coming through at the moment. Cosras, do you have a Facebook page? Not for naval history. I have a Facebook page which I've had for years, which is just me on Facebook. I should probably set up something for this on Facebook page. I have Drydot. I have my Discord channel, and I have Patreon. I should probably set up something on Facebook. Keep being told I should set up something on Facebook for my book, so I might well do it that way. Sam Thompson, I heard about this channel from Comment on Dracfell. I came here for the content and stayed for the anti-style of presentation. It is, I have to say, it is definitely a university lecture style of presentation. It is not this whole, I'm going to be sitting behind a slide talking to you. Because honestly, it always, for us, there is always a slideshow up there, but we talk about it. And my simple thing is, when I was asked about this in an academic podcast, which I think you can't get into unless you're a member of the BCMH. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out. My response was, the reason I do it this way was because then people know it's me saying it. And that's it. It's my form of referencing. I've referenced it because I put references up there when I have the material that comes from elsewhere. But more importantly, I say when you know what I'm saying is me saying it because you see me saying it. Sort of thing. That's good. Oh dear, Lindy Beige. I know that's not the way you pronounce it, but it's the way I pronounced it always. So I still keep to Lindy Beige, because also it sounds slightly cooler. And I also have Twitter account, of course, and AC_Naval History, which does do a lot of chatting. Sorry about that. Doc, about your cough. You sound a bit like my workmates when our AC unit was not cleaned for a longer time. Have you cleaned your heating system? Yeah, we have. Plus, it's we've cleaned the filters. We've had the filter had cracked. We've had it replaced, but it's still taking a. I suppose way. The damage was done, but now it's taking a while for it to work out. Hmm. Hmm. Let's see. Don't sound on. 2 episodes and I nearly went to war with him. Yeah, that's quite something. He was jacking on about the British Army in the 1860s. I mentioned the fact that this was not the best army in the world in the 1860s, and the fact that they were heading towards the counter reforms, and he didn't return. I have to say, I haven't realized that Lindy Page is a YouTuber. I will have to go look it up. The Lindy Page and the thing that might be pronunciations going wrong because the Lindy Page I know of is well. Comes down here is usually someone who's a bit of a blowhard, but in that could be my family lexicon coming through. So we let to one side. Bolivar, I always get an irresistible urge to put his collar down. This is why I wear t-shirts. No one gets an urge to put my collar down. Deadeye Glynn, a separate channel for Bill Trumps would be good, but would take some administrative time. It would do. We are considering doing some more video stuff, but it's a case of if we do more video stuff, then we will set up eventually probably a separate channel. But at the moment, we aren't doing that because we aren't doing enough video stuff to justify it, so it's just appearing on mine. Tony for free. We all know we are not watching. JP, I'm not liking that cough. None of us are liking the cough, but it'll be okay. I had whooping cough when I was younger, so anytime I get a cough, it sounds really quite bad. And it's basically me being tired, combined with the heating system, gave me a very nice cough. It's like watching jingles for the ship recognition skills, or is detailed analysis of the actual situation. That's good. My issue isn't with your pronunciation, but with his somewhat eccentric approach to cause and effect. Also, his passion for the past being superior to the present. He mostly does tank things so far as I've seen. Oh, I have to look him up. This could be a lot of fun. Costas, how are things looking on the academic job front? I'm giving one more serious effort and then throwing in the towel. I get a lot of contract work, which is why I am not throwing in the towel yet. But and I have, of course, a book coming out next year, and I have this. So let's put it this way: I am pursuing lots of different avenues. I do like the idea of theoretically being able to turn contract lecturing. It's a case of if I can get the contract lecturing and lecturing from home, especially the online teaching, going to the level that it become as well as I can do, and the YouTube stuff doing nicely, and the books going through, I could probably make it workable without having to win a lottery. If I could win a lottery, that'd be brilliant. Ooh, they popped up again. Awazowski, don't worry. I said I'm okay. It sounds worse than it is. It sounds a lot worse than it is, but it isn't as bad. And I've barely coughed today. It's when I'm talking a lot, I start to cough. If the first Gallipoli succeeds, would the bombardment of Ancona take place more or less in depends on how the situation plays out. There is one scenario you can see where it wouldn't take place at all. There's another scenario where it would take out, where it would be really critical. Depends on how it goes through. Just I think I was thinking less of streaming on Facebook and more of putting schedules of topics and who is to be on and taking suggestions for topics and guests. That could be interesting. For bilge pumps, a Facebook group. Could be something. Could be something to do. We'll think about it. I have a Jamie. Monday 16:40. Late as usual, but I'm here. Hello! Hope you're well. And also, I don't talk about others' personal lives other than to note there are, in fact, combat veterans in life and lots of civilians have trauma too. Yeah. Okay, Dubs, Gordon, and Greg Zarski have put these various points forward. His latest claim was that muzzle-loading muskets were better than modern rifles because the bullet per kill ratio in modern warfare is low. The range is also far higher. You're more likely to do fire for effect to cover your movements and try and protect your personnel. I can see the point, though, but it's one of those points you can make, because you can go, this kills far more people for this number of bullets, but it's how tactics and things change over time. Is it better to expend people or bullets? In the end, it's better to expend bullets, so, he's both right and, yeah, so what? Is what I would be my pointing. And, Lindy's YouTube persona, which I'm fairly sure he hams up a bit in his own videos, is a little stereotypical British public schoolboy. Hugh Laurie and Blackadder. Cool. Nostradamus, no, you'll get the lottery curse. No. My plan for if I won the lottery is very simple. Because of the fact that I have about 8 different jobs, and the British tax system is not designed to deal with someone who works for about 8 different organizations without presuming that you are doing something bad, I have an accountant already. So my plan will be, accountant, please help me set up a trust, make sure this is properly invested, and I don't really want to have to think about it or deal with it. I just want it sorted. Okay. Jeff Beeler, what are your top 5 tanks? Ooh. Top 5 tanks at the moment, or top 5 tanks ever? It's a difficult discussion. If it's ever, the Cromwell's going to be in there, because I love the Cromwell. And the Centurion. They're good tanks. I also quite like the Pershing, but I know that's a bit of an acquired taste. The AS3, your Stalin 3 is a good one as well. I like that.
But if it's just the modern ones, then Merkava. I'm kind of strange because I prefer the Challenger and the Abrahams, but I'm not so keen on the Leopard. Mainly because I feel the Leopard sounds great until you get it into actual combat. Yeah, I get Grosowski. I get the impression a lot of people not familiar with that milieu don't really get him and think he's being serious. He does make many insightful videos, though, as well as ragging on the French winter apostle. Fun times. You might have realised that both me and Drac do deal in a healthy dose of sarcasm. I always remember one comment, I think, on one of Drac's videos, one of mine, that, oh, Dr. Clark is trying to be like Drac in that he's trying to be sarcastic, and I'm sort of, when Drac's comments when we were talking about that afterwards, also going, no. We just are both incredibly sarcastic in slightly different ways, but both incredibly sarcastic. Trust me, that you do not want to be the student in my class whose phone rings. The first response will normally be, "Is that your mum calling for me?" I can't think why the students don't have their phones on in my class. Or the other one was, "Is that your dad calling for me? Is that your dad calling to arrange our model railway club meeting?" That was quite a good one to come up with. I come up with all sorts of random ones. Ooh, is that your chiropractor calling to check your feet? Or back, wasn't it? It was the orthopedic. It was the orthopedic person who was calling to check the feet. Yeah, basically, very, very few. There are a fair number you can get away with without being so rude you upset them, but rude enough they don't tend to leave their phones, or the rest of the class don't do it. New IKB 472. If you win the lottery, you must build the Church of the Blackburn with a font full of iron brew. If I win the Euro Millions with like £180 million, yes, I will do that just for the hell of it. But I'm making Drac and Jamie deliver the sermon and be the choir master. They can pick whichever one they want. Jeff Beeler, anyone listening to the Cold War Conversations podcast? Not yet. I've got some saved to listen to, but I haven't managed to get there. Manly 6040. Very kudos. Bravo, Zulu. Bravo, Zulu on that. You just done taking pesky videos, some people having a physical altercation with some store security. They sell merchandise. Maybe a good photo of their maybe a good photo of their vehicle's number plate too. Despite all police for coming here. Very good. Yikas, top 5 helicopters. Ooh. Gazelle. Lynx, especially the Super Lynx. Blackhawk, Merlin. Cobra. I prefer the Cobra to the Apache. Despite the fact that the Apache probably being the better aircraft, but I just prefer the Cobra.
Then here's, what would a Darnell's campaign have looked like in World War II? Costly and painful. Definitely costly and painful. Ooh. And also, I tell my students they can text, but no ringer. I'm the same. I don't mind them texting, but they have to also. The other rule is they have to text above the table, because I have to know the reason they're not paying attention to me is because they're texting. But if their phone goes off in a ringer, then it's open season for whatever hilarious comment goes through my head. New Activity Forces 2. Are you in a model railway club? Not officially. Unofficially, there are about 3 I have walk-in privileges to. Sam Thompson, you could hugely benefit from Time Ghost history coloration. They focus on 1900 modern day history, mostly military. They cover World War I and World War II week by week. Cool. Monday 1640. No love for the Kilmet mod for shell tanks. Not really my style. George Crabbe, you have worked out. That is the other thing, that if I won the lottery, there will be a full-sized tribal class replica. There might also be a full-sized pre-World War II Arafusa class replica built as well, because I wouldn't want. I'd be tempted to do another town class, but then there's HMS Belfast sitting there, so that seems wrong. But doing an Arafusa, there are lots of places you could stick an Arafusa, and it could go around the country and like a tribal class and visit various places, and also go internationally and visit places and sort of do war and do sort of history lessons. It'd be good. Scott, I think I've done that. I don't think I used the phrase hemorrhoids. I think I used the phrase piles. Considerance. I had my phone go off when I was giving a talk and the prof yelled, "I object." Well, it's usually fairly good. And it's always fun. It's always fun. I usually have to admit, I get there is one person who has a habit of sending me messages when lectures are when I'm about to start giving lectures, and I usually do have my phone on vibrate rather than silent, so that I can, well, to an extent, know they sent me the message. But yeah, turn your phone on vibrate, not talk, but before you give a talk. It does make life a lot easier. Turning 343. Yes, full-size travel replica, and when the doctrine is away, we will ship it to Australia. You will not. I might be nice and build a second one for Australia. I might build 2 tribal replicas and stick one in Australia and one in the UK, wandering around, and have Arafusa wandering around as well. What about Warspite? That's if Drac wins the lottery. Warspite would be very expensive. Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Lots of table discussion going on. Dirt Squad. If a student is texting on the table, what are you doing? Nobody looks at their... Yeah, that does cause fun. And above the table? It was above the table. The table is here. Right. Read Tribals on Australia. Would they demand prize money for Australia? Tempting. Sam Thompson. T-34 ergonomics were appalling. Observe, nobody still slants about the armor or hull size or uses Christie suspension. Let's put it this way. The T-34s were products of their time. William Cox. Every Panzer IV was a Tiger to hear Allies tankies tell it. Yeah. Melanie 6 Warside expensive, do you say? And how many tens of millions or hundreds of pounds to rebuild a tribal? But it will be worth it. And it will be my millions, so, you know. And I think we could probably rebuild a tribal class for... Sorry. Sorry. Did the microphone fail? Let's see. Hopefully it hasn't been too long. And Warspite's not too expensive. It would be just, you know, about 10 million or so to build a tribal, 5 to 10 million. And it'd be my money, so, you know, can do that. But, yeah, all good. Dirt Squad, they can only get prize money if they can return Australia to Portsmouth. Well. Never bet against a tribal class destroyer. Never. It's far easier. Oh. I've been muted for over an hour. An hour? Really? I've been muted for an hour? Yes, we've all been lip reading. We have sound. It's just popped up now, literally telling me I'm muted, so I hope I haven't been muted for an hour. I'm gonna hope that's me. You were being very cruel and winding me up. Turning joking. That's good. Whew. Panic attack going on there. It's all according to the plan, a Militron plan to take over the UK. We are, you know, this is the other advantage. We have if we have the millions, we have our own Aerofuser class, our own tribal. That's good. Turning. That's cruel to wind up the poor sick man. New Acme Full System 2. If I won the lottery, then lots of new build Steam Loco Heritage Railway extension projects might wake up one morning fully funded. Oh yeah, that would also happen. I have plans. There are lines I'd like to extend. Because in my dream world, every Heritage Steam line
should share a train station with the regular line. Now, listen to me out. There is a reason for this. My theory is if they connect up together, then it makes it far easier for people to get to the heritage line. And it also it makes them far more part of the commuter network. So you could potentially commute can involve a steam train. It's always good. And so everyone wins. It also makes it easier to move steam trains around the UK if every one of the lines are connected up to the main line. Because then, when you want to move a steam train from one line to another, instead of having to go on the roads, the steam train can just take itself up there. Be great. Turning 343, I propose to take your precious tribe away. You know I'm cruel. Yeah. I'm going out on a limb here and guessing the capability to build a battleship has been lost now. Where has any experience making armor that requires such a vessel? It would be very, very interesting and very, very expensive, as I said, which is why I'm concentrating on a destroyer and a cruiser. Yeah. Besides, Drac would do the test run, would probably be building HMS Thunderchild, and that would lay the groundwork for HMS Warspite. Death Squad, you need a few new platforms, and with the reliability of some of the heritage steam locos, I wouldn't want to commute on them. Well, that would be the thing. It would only be lines which could actually offer reliability and commute, and it'd be fun, but it'd be interesting. Ever heard of the Gwilly Railway in Carmarthenshire? Sadly impossible to extend to it unless you change routes massively, as town extended over the original route since 1960s. You can find a way. Thomas Van can I do the radio equipment? That would be fun. It would be. The thing is to do the ships and do them accurately so that people can go through and see exactly what the stuff was available in 1939. So they actually get an idea, because the trouble is a lot of our understanding of history comes from looking at equipment which was available in 1945. Or later, if you go around HMS Belfast, you see a wonderful ship, but you see a ship of the 1950s. Not the ship of World War II. Or even definitely not the ship of 1939. Abzaski, would that replica be HMS Eskimo with a built-in self-propelled detachable bow? No. I don't think I do Eskimo. I think I would probably do HMS Nubian. As much as I love Eskimo, I think Nubian really should have been preserved. It actually made, I've admitted this on Discord, I'll admit this to everyone, it made me, I was actually crying when I wrote about the end of HMS Nubian in the book. Because I just felt it was so undeserved. That ship did so much for the UK, and then it's just discarded, and you just go, you SHITs. Death Squad, in the snow a few years ago, the Loco Tornado was pulling an excursion. Eurostar called for help, so it pulled a standard Eurostar and excursion to the Channel Tunnel instead. Always fun. Dinky or whoever makes diecast steers these days should have made an HMS Esco with a hidden button which detached the bow. Oh, that would have been cool. Anyway, I'm not sure how long I've been live tonight because the counter decided to reset itself at some point. And it's almost 3 minutes till 3.5 hours. So I'm going to say thank you everyone for being here this evening. I hope you're well. I hope you've had a nice time watching this. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for taking part. I'm going to go off now and get some rest, as I've been live for 3.5 hours. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you see you on Thursday when we're talking about paddle ships at war and what they're going up to. And Thomas van der Velde, yeah, that would be cool to have all that radio stuff in there. The Ark uses alcohol vapor, which disappeared all the time. So then kerosene came. Woohoo! If only Dreadnought had been preserved. Yes, Dreadnought being preserved would have been cool. The video. Did you watch the video from Military History Visualized? He took the first video apart point by point. Interesting. Cahedron. Do you still haven't told us which plane we should be worshipping? You all seem to want to worship the Blackburn. I'll leave it at that. There is one aircraft which I think sometimes deserves a little bit more love, but they probably get enough love, and going to announce that. Then it'll be a time when a special video comes out, and there is a special video planned for that. Denlin, thank you. It's a special bilge pumps video, so that might give you an idea of what aircraft it is. William Cox, good night, cheers, and smooth sailing. Thank you. Yickers, thank you. Felix B, thank you. DGB40, thank you. Bolivar, thank you. New IKB 472, thank you. Eric Oken, thank you again for your excellent stream. Always a pleasure. Ablaski, thank you. Melly 1640, have a good night. Dunner Kamat, thank you. John Shea, thank you. Take care. William Cox, take you. Dan take care. Paddleship sounds like an interesting weapon. Here they are. And Carl Gosworth, thank you. Take care. DM Carpenter, thank you. Take care. Hello, turning 3434. Andrew Brand, thank you. Right. Take care, everyone. And thank you, everyone. Thank you.